Good afternoon.
Thank you all for joining us. We will be recording the session today so that way we can post it so that if there's any questions or if anybody would like to rewatch this or if you have any team members that are not able to join us, that way the information will be made available and hopefully an easy path to getting the shapefiles corrected and resubmitted by the 5 business day deadline. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to the CTC team to give kind of a brief overview of generally what we were seeing as the kind of deficiencies in the shapefiles that were submitted. Again, it was literally almost every applicant. And then unlike our previous webinar for the financial information, we will open this up for specific questions. We've got our technical experts here, so we want to make sure that we give you all the opportunity to ask your questions to make sure that you know exactly what we and CTC are looking for, so that obviously what gets submitted during this curing window ultimately gets you to the requirement of the shapefile showing everything we're looking to see, and then that way we can continue to move forward with scoring. So with that, I will go ahead and turn it over to the CTC team for an overview.
Appreciate it, Jessica. And Danny, I'll have you kind of speak to the specific issues. I'll just kind of give a quick overview. Just as a reminder, the technical sections comprised of, various thick components that come in, and what we do with that information is we're not asking you to do detailed design engineering and prove that it's going to work ahead of your application approval, but all of this information comes in and coalesces as a way for us to understand what you're trying to accomplish at the end of the day. And just in general with curing, that's not a bad thing. If we're asking for curing, it means that it is curable and we can move forward with the updated information. And just one of the reasons why we do that, and this is true in every single state, is NTIA has pressed upon every state broadband office that to ensure that the review process matches the criteria of the application, that the application matches what's in IPv2 and any subsequent state NOFO, and that those documents match what's in the BEAD NOFO. So working our way backwards, this is about compliance for future audits and making sure that NTIA approves the process. And with that said, Danny, I'll turn it over for you on some specific items.
Absolutely. Yep. Thank you. Can you hear me okay? Yes.
I can for now, yes.
Yeah, okay. All right. Sometimes the microphone is not so great on those computers. So we're talking about shapefiles, and Jessica's right. The majority of the applications were deficient in some form in one of the components of the shapefiles. The biggest missing component really was the polygons and the BSLs. Those were the two. Almost everybody provided routes. That was pretty easy to understand. For polygons, what we want to see is a polygon layer that encompasses all of the routes and the BSLs for the project area. And it would just need to encompass all of those items. It doesn't need to be your entire network footprint, but just the area that's being constructed. The second thing, well, maybe even the second equal deficiency was interconnection points. Many applicants did not submit interconnection points, maybe understandably so. It can be a little confusing as to exactly what that is. But the interconnection points are the areas where the proposed network are going to interconnect with backhaul locations, with existing networks, or with other third-party networks. Those would be all of the interconnection points. Go ahead.
Yeah, Nick. And I'll elaborate a little bit on that, Danny, as well. For the boundaries, a question came in. Submissions were at the county level. Are we looking sort of something more detailed beyond the county boundary? At a base level, making sure that you cover the entire county, which you bid on, is what we're looking for. What we've seen across multiple states at this point that are further along is that despite all of the direction for universal coverage and bidding, this is not what has come in across the board. And these polygons help us understand that the commitment that the applicant is looking to provide universal service or make sure that they're not missing anything out. Because it would be unfortunate to get down to the road to make preliminary awards and then find out that there was some misunderstanding along the way. We just want evidence within your application that you understand you're covering all of these locations that you've applied for and that we can understand it. Secondly, we've even run across some situations where people have given us detailed designs that make sense to us and that look to cover everyone, but they actually were a county over or a CBG over and they didn't intend to do that. So while the design was appropriate and it would go all the way to award, we found that they didn't actually mean to provide that information. They were looking to do something else. There was like a cross up in the application. So having this information just ensures that we understand what you're looking to accomplish. And we don't need anything more specific beyond showing us that commitment.
Right, I'm just reading that comment there.
Yeah, I guess the question is if you're running fiber through an area that does not have eligible BSL and you do not intend to serve that area, would that encompass in the service area polygon? I think, Danny, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Like we wanted to see something of your entire selection, but basically we just want to make sure that the polygons at the bare minimum cover all the BSL you're looking to serve. Like there is a requirement for universal coverage in the BEAD program. And so like even if you're coming from a different county and your backhaul gets there, we want to see that, but we don't need you to show that you're picking up locations in the other county. We just want to know what your commitment is and make sure that we understand it completely. I think in a lot of cases, this may be self-explanatory, but it really helps to have that information so nothing gets missed. The pain of missing it now and catching it down the line is so much that we really just want to cover our bases here. And then, Danny, you also touched on the interconnection points.
Yeah.
This goes back to the thing that I said at the beginning, which is all of the submitted technical materials are, coalesce into our understanding of what you're looking to accomplish. So when you have a detailed network design plan that shows where your existing infrastructure is, your backhaul all the way to the internet and what the capacity is, those documents don't necessarily show how that ties into your new proposed routes that you're building. Having something that combines those two so we can understand where on that schematic your new design starts off, where your existing network leaves off, is really helpful for us to understand the viability of the project. And so it's more about having an idea of where that network diagram interconnects into your routes. The question came in from Christopher Lord. To summarize, if we have the boundary around the BSL that will be construction, that will be sufficient. Yes, I think that's correct. As long as you cover that, then we're going to be fine with what is. We just need to make sure we understand your commitment.
Okay. So those are the two main issues that we saw on the shape files. Jessica, did we want to talk about other issues that we saw in the review process?
Yes, I think that would be fine. I think it was mainly kind of the inconsistency and maybe some of the numbers in the applications or differing parts. But yes, I think that would be good.
That's right.
And then, opening it up for anybody's questions.
Okay. Yeah, Jessica's right. There were definitely some of the applications got flagged just for, the application might have, certain match amounts or grant funded amount that did not align with the cost estimate. So we just flagged those and kicked them back to be corrected. Requirements for file format. Yes, they do need to be Esri shape files. How far do we go with the backhaul drawing? Do we show it all the way to the regional data center or back to the main central office? So for the backhaul drawing, I'm assuming you're talking about the network design drawing. We would just want to see go back to the regional data center, back to the main primary connection, back out to the internet, wherever that comes in. So we have a good understanding of what the backhaul for this proposed project looks like. Kind of existing route.
Dan, I think you have some background noise. I can maybe answer some of these
Okay, I'm
questions
sorry.
if it's helpful. No, no
Yeah,
problem.
yeah.
So, just going back to requirements, I believe it originally said we'd like to have these in shapefile format. It doesn't have to be Esri specific shapefile, but then we can leverage that data. If that's an issue, let us know and we can make sure we find a way to make it work for you. But ideally, shapefiles would be great. How far do we go with the backhaul drawing? We basically within the network diagram, we're trying to understand how you're going to have enough capacity from the internet all the way to the people you're going to serve with the links and the capacity throughout the entirety of the network. If it's fiber optic, like what the split looks like. So basically enough information to show that there's a plan to get from those back. So a regional data center would be ideal at the end of the day for that information. Another question came in about if they have existing route, and if they've provided existing and proposed routes, do we need to label where the new routes meet the existing as the interconnection? So that's very helpful to have both of those. That sort of helps us understand where that interconnection and tie-in is. We would really, if we've noted for you in Curing that we'd like to see the interconnection points, I would ask just to put a point kind of where those two lines meet to see it. We're sort of in this unique scenario where when we put together the application questions, it's everything that we feel we need in order to assess the project holistically from viability standpoint and move it forward. But then we get caught into this requirements of NTIA and kind of playing the game of how grant review goes is if we've asked for something in the application specifically, we need a response to it in order to move forward and show to the NTIA and the future auditors that we've reviewed it based on the criteria we set forth. So yes, if we can put some interconnection points in there, that would be fantastic. It may not even provide the engineering reviewer with additional information. However, it is what we need to sort of move forward. The network diagram is a different upload than the shape files, right? So the shape files typically, I mean, it's good to put existing infrastructure if you like in there, but basically shows us the routes that you're going to deploy in this program. So we can see that you're going to connect or at least attempt to connect to everyone in the obligated area. The diagram is more of and I think there's a sample provided, but it's more of a logical diagram that, if you imagine what those have looked like before, there's clouds and straight lines and information about equipment and that type of detail. It's more of the logical design to get from regional data center back to the community you're looking to serve. So it's a slightly different thing. Those two combine together in a way to show us exactly what needs to happen there. If we provide service area boundaries around the fiber and shows the service area that where there are no BSLs, will that be a problem? No, it doesn't. It doesn't have a problem. As long as you have a boundary file that covers all of the obligated BSL, it can capture your routes as well, no problem. We're not going to obligate you to ones that are outside of your boundary. What we just really want to be clear is that you are following the universal coverage that is set forth in the program. So we just want to make sure that the data coming in implies that you're covering everything that you're obligated to do so. And again, this is out of experience of getting to the negotiation phase or to the preliminary assignment phase and finding that there was some miscommunication along the way and the applicant didn't think they had to cover everyone, which it's very difficult at that point. So we just want to make sure that we have the data to prove that. Okay, so if there are updates to the served locations relative to the version of the fabric that was used, do we still provide grant eligible BSLs and network that currently connects to those eligible BSLs? Jessica, do you want to touch on this one?
Yeah, so what I would say is as of right now, it needs to match the Excel file that you uploaded earlier in the application, where essentially it's based on our challenge process data, what locations you're proposing to include in your project area, and if there's any locations that you're proposing to exclude from the project area. So it needs to match that spreadsheet that you supplied earlier in the application. And so what we will do, so it's the post-challenge locations that have been available on the website. And then what we will do, obviously we've already been going through this process based on the 1.2 final proposal guidance of removing locations both for kind of a non-BSL, if it's a hay bale or a barn or whatever, or also if something is already served and we've got documentation from the provider that serves it. A lot of that is also stuff that we will discuss with the particular applicants in negotiation. So the cleanest way that we'd like to see this now is use the post-challenge location information that's available in the data set on our website. Again, it should be pretty cut and dry of these are the locations I'm including, these are the locations I'm excluding, and those added together should match what's on our website of what's currently available in that project area. Again, if there's been a number of locations that have been removed based on that final proposal guidance, we will work with you during the negotiation phase. In most cases, it's only a handful of locations. In one or two project areas, it actually does pretty substantially change the project area. And so that's also something that we will work with you during negotiation. And potentially, again, where there's really dramatic changes, allow for applicants to have a few days to essentially kind of come up with a new proposal, given kind of the changes in the areas that are eligible. So we like to see everything in here now based on the challenge process data set. And then we will work with you, obviously, during negotiation. If something has already been removed and is listed on our website is already served, or again, a challenge location that's not properly reflected as a BSL, those will get removed later on in the process. And William also just dropped the link to that data in the chat. Do we have any other questions?
The question is, if we need to adjust our program milestone timelines, do we also need to adjust our funding schedules to those line up with the milestones? So I guess what this is saying is there's a timeline that comes in with milestones that shows when you're going to do your engineering, your construction, your information. And the question is, if your capital investment schedule and how you're looking to be deploying funds over the course of that. Ideally, those things align. Again, not sure what changes in the timeline, how drastic that would be if it's going to affect that information. But in theory, those two documents would be mostly aligned.
The other thing is too, obviously, given the amount of time it's taking to score these applications, cure the applications, whether it's through technical or, financial curing, and then depending on obviously how long, the negotiation process takes for round one, obviously then given, if we receive updated guidance from NTIA, in the meantime, if we have to make any adjustments to round one, we will obviously be going forward into negotiation with the information that is provided. However, that is also something that we can talk about once the state is in a position to move forward with terms and conditions. Obviously, this is a proposed timeline, and that we understand that, the state is off slightly of our currently proposed timeline. And then it's also possible that any, program changes from NTIA could also impact the timeline. We hope that it doesn't, but it is possible. And so, we are also being mindful of that as we would eventually lead into terms and conditions. But what I would say is, submit your kind of closest educated guess now. And then that's something that we can, work together moving forward, depending on what ultimately the program timeline ends up being, given kind of all of the other factors.
Correct. Then we have another one that basically says, I received the curing email and it didn't address any shapefiles. Does that sound reasonable? Danny, correct me if I'm wrong. There were certain not every application had an issue with shapefiles. It was the largest issue we ran across. But if we did not send an email out about shapefiles, then chances are there's no rework for you to do on any shapefiles. And
That
then
is
to
correct.
confirm, the series of Esri shapefiles include that the border or buffer around the BSLs to ensure that it's captured. We want to make sure that you provided the BSLs you intend to cover as just two ways to identify that we understand what you're looking to do in your scope. The fiber build, the incremental fiber build that you're going to place on the, for this project, correct? And yes, interconnection points, which could represent splice points into existing fiber network, and then existing fiber network, if you're capable of doing so, that'd be fantastic. Because in some cases, you may be tying into a fiber network that belongs to another provider that you don't have necessarily all of the route details back to the regional facility, right? So the information you do have, more is always better in that case. The next question is, can you provide more details around what type of information you're looking for on section 3, question 11, regarding the project descriptions, geographic descriptions, etc.? Danny, do you want to cover that one, or do you want me to take a stab?
I'm not sure if you can hear me too well. Can you hear me
I
okay?
can, yeah. Why don't you go
Okay.
first, and if it's not coming through, I'll try to elaborate.
Okay. Yeah. Sure. So really, it's a geographic description of the area to be served. Uh, Additionally, some description of the characteristics of the local community being served uh, by the infrastructure, and any kind of labor requirements or anticipated labor requirements. I believe all those were in section 7. Also, just enough information so that GTA has a good idea of the complete picture, a good picture of the community that's going to be served by the resulting infrastructure.
Yeah, and so if I can maybe elaborate on this a little bit. So, for example, if you're doing specific county, some information about that could include the number of BSLs you're intending to serve, the approach in which you're doing it, like your knowledge of that area. Like we anticipate it's going to be mostly aerial because of this provider's there, or this needs to be underground because there isn't pole infrastructure in place in this given community, and therefore this is how we're approaching service to them. Just details along those lines. Correct, Annie? Is that sort of what we're looking for? Yeah, just some
Yeah, absolutely.
written description of your approach. And then I think there was an answer already to the next question. But if you did not receive a curing email, then you should assume that you don't have any curing at this time.
Yeah, Mitch, I would add, for the geographic narrative description, some applicants just put a brief description of the project. We're going to serve this many BSLs and construct this much fiber, and that was it. It was just more about the project itself and not anything about the geography or the area. So, you know, just like what Mitch said, it's really about a description of the area and how it relates to the project.
And why we can glean some of that information from your shape files and from the other data you provide us, what we found again is if it's asked for in the application to be compliant with what NTIA expects of the review, we do need to address the questions in the application. This serves as another data point so we understand that you understand that it is universal coverage and that we're trying to accomplish everything we can within reason, right? So that's why we ask these questions, and that's why we have to have an answer to them. How do you get added to the list of those who get curing emails for application? Um, by having items that need to be cured. If you haven't received a curing email, then it most likely means that it almost certainly means that you had no curing in your applications. If your concern is, I mean, these application emails went out to the primary point of contact for the application, so that would have gone across the board. So if you're not that person for your application, I would check that person or that person's inbox or junk email or whatever is set up in order to ensure nothing is come to you.
And yes, we're also happy to confirm if you did not get a curing email and you would also just like to confirm with us that you don't currently have any pending curing, you're always welcome to reach out to us at broadband@gta.ga.gov, and we'll be happy to confirm for you that we have not sent back your application for additional curing and that it did pass the technical sections if you would like that assurance. Do we have any other questions while we have everybody? Alrighty, well, again, please always feel free to reach out to us at broadband@gta.ga.gov. William also just dropped that in the chat as well. Happy to answer any individual questions that you may have, obviously via email as well, but we wanted to have this session just because, while most applicants did have some sort of curing for technical, we wanted to address this and hopefully get this cleared up so that everybody can get these resubmitted as quickly as possible. Just as a reminder, curing does work in the application system the same way that it worked last time, that it's actually based kind of down to the minute as to when you received your original curing email. It's 5 business days from when you received the email at that timestamp on Friday. So we strongly encourage everybody to please get these in early. But again, if you have any questions or have any additional follow-up that you would need prior to resubmitting your application, please always feel free to reach out to us at broadband@gta.ga.gov. And we just encourage you to get all of the applications back in early. Please don't leave it right till the end of the deadline. And again, we will also be posting the recording of this session on our website, just so that if there's any question that was answered here that you'd like to go back and listen to, you can do that as well. With that, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon, and look forward to seeing everybody resubmit their applications. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.